On the dollar, sorry. On the dollar, there's a flying fish. In the cenotaph, there's a fish. Okay. On the coat of arms, there's a fish. The emblem of the central bank is a fish.
Okay.
So if you're going to change the emblem, it tells you that right away you are already planning to interfere with the economic structure, because all of those suggest that Barbados is kept up by the fishing industry. Okay, so a lot of different things. You're going to play around with the emblems. There's something more deeper and more sinister going on here than what meets the eye. And I think this is time for the public to wake up.
The public needs to wake up, guys. The public needs to wake up. We've said a lot of things on the show, and I said the stuff with the I told you when it's my opinion and just my view and my thoughts, and I felt
yes, ma'am.
To warn. I've said that you can go and pray on it, research on it yourself, and other things you heard on here. Go and research. But let's move it back to crime. We went there because we wanted to show you. And I'm just going to turn off your mic again, Apostle, just because of the noise. And when we're ready, you will turn it. I just wanted to show you how the distraction, what they're doing to us at this moment, and the violence, that emotional violence that they're bringing to us, and the violence against our heritage that is being meted out by the government of this country. But we have to deal with the what's happening in the streets. What's happening, Reverend, even in a church this week, broad daylight in the morning, somebody went in there to rob the cleaners of the church. Okay, this is where we live right now. Okay, we are in a crisis, right? And I want to say this tonight we want to quickly touch on the death penalty. We want to know, is this the answer? We want to talk about the citizens fighting back. Okay, what about the gun court that Mr. Thorne is proposing for this country? We want to quickly look at that before we open the lines. It might go a little extra tonight, okay? Because people enjoy the show. But I want to share something I learned tonight, which I know you know this already, Apostle. But I was able to speak to people who were present at some of these things. Do you know that I'm finding a way to say this so they don't write me? Because I was setting a question, but I know the answers. Yeah? Thanks. Where is in 2018, especially the 2018 elections, there are political parties, or there is a political party that I was told today that took drug dealers, gave you money for your election campaign. Who is that party? You all listen. You all watching this. I know you're watching it. This is why I'm trying to say to Barbadians, be careful what we are asking people to do, because if I say this to you, Apostle, if you're running a campaign anywhere in the world and somebody gives you money, if a cigarette company comes and gives you money, they are lobbying you. But when you go into government, right, Apostle, there are certain obligations that you're going to have to that cigarette company. If a vaping company or whatever the company is, even if the church gives you money, the church is looking for, when you go in, right? And when they're coming against the church, we want to have a government that is going to stand up for the church. These are called lobbyists. My question is, why did a particular political party take money, loads of money in brown paper bag from drug dealers? And this is why when you have a government, where people within the government, they have taken money from people involved in crime, gang leaders, how are they going to fight those same gangs? Make it make sense, Apostle. People are saying there are people in government that they were in drug dens with. We're hearing that. Okay, I can't say that part. Okay. We're hearing there are people in government in drug dens taking drugs with everybody else in there. Police comes and police have to go and leave them. How is that government going to fight drug dealers? Why is it that when a certain government got into power, the drug dealers said, turned to the others and said, our government is now in power about this particular government? When we see the opening of parliament and a particular government would allow gang leaders to be in parliament, you really expect that particular government to be fighting gangs in Barbados? I want us to stop and think, you know. Apostle, we want to talk about some of the solutions to Barbados's crime crisis, because we're not going to get the real solutions from government.
Right.
Over to you, sir.
Well, first of all, let me say this, because you had a situation where some gentlemen from that dimension of our society said they had an agreement with the government. I don't know why that was shoved under the carpet. They said we kept our word, and the government didn't keep theirs. They said we kept our word, and the government did not keep it, which means they themselves have found out that this government cannot be trusted. Okay, but what it should also show the public is that the lengths that they went to without the public's knowledge to try to curb crime in Barbados, and we heard up to some point of $8,000 per month. I mean, that is even more money than a police sergeant is making. Okay, but here's the thing that I want to say here, and I mentioned this about the St. James North by election, where, as I said, the Democratic Labour Party could not compete with that dimension. But then you had the winning candidate going to be sworn in, and there were some individuals that went along with him, and folk were saying, okay, well, that's not a problem. Then we find out that these individuals supported the campaign very heavily, and we're asking ourselves a very serious question: why is it that you have to have heavy support from these individuals? I thought the election was about you showing individuals the ability that you have, you showing individuals the solutions you're going to be bringing to curb whatever is happening in St. James North. I thought that's what it was about. If that was, if I was in that position and I went to Government House to be sworn in, and individuals, not saying that they haven't straightened their lives up or anything of that nature, but my dad, who is 87 years old right now, if I did that as a winning candidate, brought along individuals, I'm telling you, at 87, my dad would still whoop me, because my dad would pull me aside and say, young man, why are these people here? Where's Where's the pastor that blessed your constituency office? Why weren't they invited? Where's the man of God or the woman of God that blessed your constituency office? Why are they not here? Okay, my father would pull me aside and verbally and then physically at 87 try to whoop me and get me straightened up. And he will tell me, I cannot support you as a candidate if these are the people you are linking with. Now, again, let me make it clear. I'm not saying that they have a problem. I'm just saying from my perspective, what I know would happen, because my father would expect that I would be above the board as a candidate, that I would not be allowing my campaign to be controlled by individuals that are, of a different persuasion. So when you see that happening, you have to ask yourself a question: why is this the case in Barbados, where it seems like whenever there is some level of victory and some level of support or some level of celebration, why is it always that this is the type of element that we see here? Now, I want to go to some solutions. Number one.
Let's talk first about the death penalty. We don't take it in order.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the death penalty first of all. Now, the reality of when we're talking capital punishment, we have to make sure two things: that we have very strong divine law, and then also very strong laws of the land. Okay, we do not have very strong laws of the land because our nation has moved away from the laws of the divine, from the laws of God. Okay, now the other thing that has happened is that Barbados has become a nation that is overrun with drugs, overrun with guns, overrun with gangs, overrun with corruption. Okay, now the other element to this, and I want to make sure that I'm very, very clear on what I'm saying: legislation should by now have been brought to the table by the Barbados Labour Party. Legislation, anti-gang legislation and anti-gun legislation, and then also very strong anti-drug legislation. There are way too many people who get off in Barbados with drug offenses. Okay, and you see in Barbados, I said this before on the show, the people at the top don't ever get prosecuted. Okay, it's the little guy that's prosecuted in Barbados. So let's deal with this area of the death penalty. We have to now understand there's a difference between crime and serious crime. We have to understand there's a difference between murder and premeditated murder. And so we have to structure what the punishments will be based on the type of situation at hand. What we're seeing in Barbados right now in terms of the gun violence is premeditated. Somebody gets in a vehicle, drives into an area, they're going for a particular person, it's already premeditated. That is something that we have to put in place. And the government is responsible for the types of legislation and the types of laws that are put in place to deal with these very serious and very, very violent crimes.
So what are you saying about you're saying that there are some crimes that are premeditated. You are recommending the death penalty, and as you think about your answer, I want the people in the comment section, because let's think about what's happening in Barbados now. The question is, if the death penalty is introduced, let's have a conversation about it. I heard Mr. Todd saying let's bring it to the people. Is this something that we need to look at this point?
Yeah, it's definitely something that has to be looked at, because the scant respect for life in Barbados right now. I mean, what is happening is outrageous. I mean, life right now for a certain section of our society is, the respect for life is at zero right now. Okay, and all of this is being funneled from a source that goes all the way up to the fact that you can't really say anything about this government before a bad response from people. And we don't understand that in our nation, there's freedom of speech. And when people are angry at you because you said something that they, rub them in a certain way, but they're ready to get rid of you. You have to begin to realize that we're living in very, very serious times. But when you have a situation, Madam Weeks, where you're seeing the type of violent activity that is going on, there must be a place to really seriously judge these situations and then move to, having a very strong element where we administer justice. Okay, because you have a situation right now where our people aren't safe.
Right.
Our elderly, they're not safe. I mean, come on, you had an elderly lady that was raped 3 times. Are you kidding me? So what is to be done, and what can be done right now to send a message that we're not going to have this level of activity? Now, when I was a boy at secondary school, the then commissioner of police made a statement, and I remember it. He made a statement saying, "There's no such thing as gangs in Barbados." And I said, how could he say that when I had some guys in my year that told me they were in gangs? So I'm like, how's the police commissioner saying there's no such thing as gangs in Barbados, and yet I'm going to school with guys who are in gangs, or telling me they're in gangs? So you can see that there is a spill off of this stuff. And I'm telling you, Madam Weeks, because I had individuals from within the Barbados Police Service that I know and that know me well.
Yeah.
Individuals from the military that traversed Barbados during COVID that told me, Mr. Scantlebury, you have no idea the amount of drugs and guns that came into Barbados while the people were locked up during COVID. You have no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes,
only
ma'am.
because of time, we're gonna, because I want to get to the people to start calling in. So your general feel, and I'm looking at the comment. Some people are saying yes to the death penalty for certain crimes. That when we have proper legislation that determine the degree of the
Exactly.
crime, then we
Yes.
can have. And I think that's what I heard Mr. Thorne in the he was saying we need to have legislation that determines
Yes.
the degree of crime committed.
Yeah.
But at this point, as you said, there's no regard. I'm just going to turn off your mic a little bit. There's no regard for life, and there are no real consequences in their minds. They go to jail, they're coming out. There's no, so it's something to, I mean, you know what, we just need to discuss it, because I think we must remember that when these guys go to kill, they're going to kill, right? They're going to kill. They are targeting who they want. It's premeditated, and they're going to kill, right? And so keep that in mind while we're trying to be soft on them. Keep that in mind, okay? I believe that yes, you're going to need proper legislation. You need to determine what the types of crime, etc. But let's quickly look at the gun court. Now, one of the things that Jamaica is claiming that worked for them is a gun court, and they have a Gun Court Act of 1974, which features no jury trials. Right? So if you're caught with a gun, there's no jury trials for you. The cases are heard by judges. So everybody listen. And because we don't have one in Barbados, from my understanding. No jury. The cases are heard by judges if you're caught with a gun. Do you think that will help to deter some of this people getting involved in gun crimes. Number two, they fast track the trials. So it's not anything you're going to be on bail for this whole long time, right? They plan, according to the plan, the legislation, that it needs to be finished within 7 days, right? Within 7 days. Think about it. Because they say we don't talk solution, but these are serious solutions. Serious solutions here. Mandatory minimum sentences for illegal firearm and ammunition offenses. So there's a mandatory sentence. You get caught with a gun. I can't remember if it was 7 years. You know you're getting 7 years. You know whatever the number of years is in Jamaica. As a child, you would hear it. You get caught with a gun, that is what is going to happen. According to Jamaica, they are now saying that they are seeing a decrease in murders and in gun-related crimes. With those three areas that I've outlined, if you would stop long enough from typing to listen, I want to hear your thoughts. And as you call in tonight, I want to hear your thoughts on that. Just a quick comment, Apostle, just real quick, and then we have to move to the next thought before they call it.
Okay, quickly, let me say this, that Barbados has a slightly different demographic to Jamaica. I think, again, and that's a pretty good move, but I think that, when we have investigations and we have located individuals who have firearms and ammunition, that should be a strict, an immediate remand. Okay, an immediate remand. Let me say this to the point that I think from information I got, that one of the guns that was confiscated by the police here in Barbados was tied to a murder in New York. So that tells you that we have a very serious movement of ammunition and firearms, internationally coming into Barbados. So I think it's very important that when the Barbados Police Service, that they're given leverage, that once an individual has been found with an unlicensed firearm and also ammunition, that there's an immediate penalty for that. Okay, the case can come later, but there should be a penalty for being found with an unlicensed firearm and ammunition. I mean, an immediate penalty on that alone, because that
somebody here is saying that in Jamaica it starts at 15 years. I don't know. I don't know. I remembered 7 when I was growing up. Now let me ask you a question, guys. I want to hear. Can we? So we moved on from We've moved on, guys. So those of you who don't realize, from the death penalty, we are just quickly looking at gun court, and we went through all the different the 3 areas that Jamaica covers. A good point, Kamar. Question is if the gun court will punish the gun importers. One would assume that would be the case, that the gun importers, it has to do with gun. So one would assume that would be the case, right? Okay, so no, but let's hear your thoughts about the gun court. All right, let's hear your thoughts about it. The next area is this. One of the things that I notice, and I don't know if anybody else notices it, is that we don't have we are not hearing any white Barbadians being attacked by these criminal elements. We don't hear any, as of right now, we're not hearing any robberies, right, of white Barbadians. And that's just me speaking. I didn't see anything. I went and I checked. I have not seen anything. I have not seen any or any reports. It could be under report, not reported. My question is, if it is that it's not being reported, why is that so? Now, one thing we know, I'm going to put my viewpoint up of why it is, my opinion, not an expert. What I found, what I realized is that, having dealt with my white friends, and I'm singling out white for a reason, to make a point here, is that you will find in a household, and if my white friends, if I'm wrong, message me and tell me. If I'm stereotyping, message me and tell me, okay? And please forgive me. But it's just my experience I'm speaking of, right? Everybody in the household have a gun. I used to have a white, I used to employ a white dance teacher. Can't give the name. And she would bring a gun in her bag to rehearsal. I'm telling you the dead truth. She opened her bag to take out her little whatever she has in the bag. You see the gun in the bag. At rehearsal, sir. And her and I had a conversation because we whatever, I don't want to say too much so we know who it is, but we would drive together, and so on. We had a good relationship. And she's who made me understand how they think. If she's going walking, she's going walking, she walks with her gun on her. I'm serious. She was over like 60 something. She said she goes nowhere without her gun. A tiny little gun. I don't know what you call that kind of gun. She had in her bag. We had some other friends when we were doing our movies before they cracked down and everything. Where did we get our guns from? I say no more, to borrow. Right? Until they said, no, I couldn't do that. They wanted to give me a gun license. I'm like, oh, Lord, I'm scared. I don't want to get their guns. But I am saying to us, could it be that the criminals are smart and they know who have guns in this country? I am just wondering. I'll put that out there. But the big question here is, should the citizens begin to fight back against criminals in this country?
That's
your thoughts?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, again, it's become very, very, very much open to us that, number one, Barbados needs to become safer, because by now, especially in the last 6 years, our streets should have been more lighted. Other security measures should be in place for sure, which have not been in place for a long time. Even areas where I grew up, still very much dark to this very day, and there's areas where people have to get off the bus and lay hours and walk home. So with all of this talk about Barbados being world class, we don't see that as it relates to the safety on our streets. The other element that is also very important is, again, you must understand that society has changed. The village is no longer the village. The heights no longer the heights. It's changed. It's changed drastically. And so a lot of the times the neighborhood watches, they don't actually work, because when you have a case where there's a new neighbor and you don't even know who your new neighbor is, you really can't function properly in that area. The other thing that we need is increased policing in areas, especially the increase of policemen on the road, especially at night. You know, and they need to, I mean, we can do things, and let me just say this, we can, the Barbados Transport Board, and, you know, the transport dimension needs to have connection with the police force, and especially when you have those last buses, those 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock buses that are moving out, those and people who are getting off and having to go to work, those areas, that element is susceptible. Increased security where individuals are escorted to their vehicles, especially females. That's also very, very important. So there are things that can be done, and I know for sure Barbadians know that the white community and parts of the Indian community are well staffed. They know that. They know that within the wider Black community of Barbados, that's not there. It's there in some elements of it, but it's not there on the wider level.
Yeah.
But